Google is getting into the AR game again with the launch of Android XR, the next form factor for your favourite mobile operating system. What's the deal? What can you expect? And how does it all work? Well, we'll get into all the details, so let's get into it. Before then though, if you want more on all things Android, then definitely hit that subscribe button. We cover all of the minutiae of the world's biggest mobile OS, and now that includes a brand new form factor, so stay tuned for more on Android XR, but back to the video. So here we go, hot on the heels of last year's Vision Pro, which some of you might consider a bit of a failure, and obviously various other Meta products that have been announced, Google is now back in the AR game. Google is using a catch-all term for extended reality, or XR, to effectively fuse virtual reality, aka VR, mixed reality, aka MR, and augmented reality, aka AR. You might remember Google previously worked on Glass and Daydream VR. Yes, it's a long time ago, and Cardboard actually. That's one of my favorite products that Google ever released. This feels like a step back in that direction. All you need to know is that this is similar to what the other devices like the Vision Pro can already do. Here's the kicker though, Google isn't making the hardware, at least yet. Samsung and Qualcomm are the first partners on this project, but Google is working more directly with Samsung on the first headset, and they've come up with the developer kit called Project Muhan, or Infinity in Korean. This is the one of the first products to be available. There are also plans for more form factors, with glasses being another key form factor for Android XR development moving forward. Much of this is by the numbers, but Gemini is going to be the primary differentiator and could potentially, dare we say it, be their killer addition to Android XR. Gemini will see and hear what you do so that you can ask questions about what you're seeing in both the real world and your device's screen. It will be a new conversational interface to control the OS and apps. In fact, Google says that Android XR is the first OS built from the ground up with Gemini in mind. What's this actually like to use? Well, we briefly spent some time behind closed doors with the hardware to test it, but sadly we're not able to take pictures or video of the hardware in action. So to summarize, Project Muhan is like a lighter version of the Vision Pro, but it's mostly made of plastic. You can see that it looks similar and even needs an external battery pack. Yeah, I'm saying that out loud. We still need an external battery pack to power this, which is very disappointing, but it kind of is what it is. Without getting too much into the hardware or too much into the details of the hardware, it's lightweight and a very familiar form factor to various VR and AR headsets out there. As for the UI, which I think is the most important aspect, you use things like hand gestures to control the floating Android interface, which does seem familiar. There's a lot of Material U here. It's obviously Material U in your living room. Pinching your thumb and forefinger enacts taps on the UI, which is again very similar to what we've seen across the growing XR AR space. As for the UI, you use hand gestures to control the floating Android interface. Pinching your thumb and your forefinger enacts taps on the UI, which is again very similar to what we've seen across the growing hardware space in this industry. Eye tracking lets you look at things rather than point your hands, and apparently, according to my podcast co-host Abner, who actually managed to test this for himself, it works really well. As I noted just a little bit ago, Gemini plays a crucial role here. It's activated from the quick settings panel, and it is aware of just what you're looking at on the virtual screen and in the real world beyond that, while listening for your voice commands. So for instance, if you're watching a video and you want translations of that video, you can ask Gemini or explain the context of the video, which is a really nice touch. Heck, you can even ask more contextual questions if, for instance, you're watching a football match and want to know the league standings of the team on screen just by virtue of having a jersey on display. And you can ask how that team is doing and get that pulled right up and get the answers you need right away. Google Photos Cinematic Photos also works super well with this interface, and it is an optimized version of the app for this new form factor to take advantage of the practically infinite real estate on offer. Circle to search even works in the real world now. You can circle things like a lamp in your home screen or an object and get instant information about the item in question, and it feels like a very vast and important progression from what's currently available on mobile devices. Here's another one of the big kickers or benefits to Android XR. Most of your standard 2D Android apps will run on Android XR without any problems. Developers just need to opt in to make them actually available for this hardware. Google is still doing a lot more optimization for the first-party suite of apps like YouTube and Google TV. They're getting some upgrades to take better advantage of this new, well, visual form factor. This is all good stuff, but what about the glasses form factor that I mentioned a little while ago? Well, this is very much in the mold of Meta's Orion AR glasses, which do seem like the industry leaders, or at least were until this has been announced. We all know that Google Glass has led to this moment, so we know what is possible with a mixed reality style product such as this from Google. The prototype that we were able to test uses Raxium micro LEDs to power their in-glasses display. The size is almost identical to the Meta Ray-Bans, which you can go out and buy already, but with that display baked in. And this product category is different from Project Muhan in that it isn't supposed to envelop your entire field of view. You see text and images in your line of sight with no obvious boundary about where the screen starts and stops. Content just appears in the center, but there's more than enough for delivering glanceable information, which I think is the key differentiator, as I noted. Again, Gemini is another key component of the glasses. Side buttons and a trackpad along the stem of this allow you to interact with things not controlled by your voice, but using Gemini to do things like get real-time translations or information with only small pop-up panels is probably how most people envision AR and how AR should work, and especially given there's been a lot of demos of that in the past. Graphics and audio are only shown on screen when it's deemed useful or necessary, and I really like this touch. Navigation, I think, is one of those key ways to get that heads-up info without actually needing to look at your phone and getting distracted, which might be especially helpful if you're in a new town or a new place that you're not used to. Another demo that shows real potential or real potential use cases is real-time guides for things like DIY, or in the case of a menu that's been shown in a foreign language, it's translated, and you can get information about the dishes on that menu to help you decide which you'd like to order, or even get certain things like dietary information about those specific options. During our behind closed doors demo, the Gemini interactions were all back-to-back as well, so it will recall all aspects and contextual awareness, and I think this feels like a step above what Gemini Live is currently capable, because, well, this can actually see what you're talking about on top of getting those audio cues. The demos definitely show genuine use cases rather than what I sometimes think a lot of these actual pieces of hardware show closed demos. We often critique Google for strange decisions, but much of what we've seen in recent years now starts to appear to tie in more directly with this refined piece of potential hardware. Yes, this is not a consumer product, and so it's 100% worth tempering your expectations and taking all of this with a grain of salt. I know that I am. We could see other options out there, and we could see options which are toning down the capabilities. There's no doubt that all of the hardware has been tested under the ideal conditions as well, so again, we're hoping to see what other brands out there, because there will be partners like Xreal and a few others, which will be making options later down the line. You might also be scratching your head asking, didn't Google already try this with Glass and fail? Well, that is true, but Google at least thinks this time it will be different and believes that the vision it had with Glass and even Daydream was correct, but that the technology wasn't ready just yet. There have, of course, been advancements in displays, sensors, and processing over the past few years, but Google believes that Gemini is going to be the primary differentiator and that digital assistants are the killer application here for its version of XR. There's also things like Project Astra to consider, which I definitely think feels like the phone equivalent of this tech in action. It feels like everything has kind of been building towards this, where AI and Gemini is concerned, or at least this feels like that next obvious step for Google. Google has also said that it will soon begin real-world testing of prototype glasses running Android XR with a small group of users. No word on who they are or where this will be, but I imagine it'll be something similar to what's happened with Google Glass in the past. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how people get on with these in the real world. As for the VR style headset, we're going to see Android XR running on a Samsung headset at some point in 2025. No word from the Korean tech giant when they'll reveal the hardware, but it wouldn't be necessarily a huge shock if something was announced alongside the S25. I probably wouldn't be too surprised if Samsung left a little bit at the end of that keynote and showed us some potential hardware for later down the line. So that's it. That's Android XR. It's official, a new form factor for Android. Is that a good thing? What do you think? Let me know down in the comment sections below. We will have more coverage as more players get into the space and more hardware is available, as it's basically R&D up to this point. So no true verdict from us until we get that real world hardware to properly test drive this and give you some proper insight. I want to say though, thanks for watching. Hopefully this has given you some information on Google's next journey for Android. I'm excited to see what happens. Then again, I don't know how I feel about Android on a augmented reality platform, period. As it stands, I've not tested it, but I'm really interested to see what happens. Thanks for watching though, and I will speak to you later.